these are the moments specifically going from a winning streak where you can go from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows. You must blame yourself because it is solely your fault. I could make any excuse I want, but it was me that pulled the trigger and me that took those trades. Damage control is fucking crucial when it comes to these moments in the market. Remember, this is a game of survival. We have to ensure we are our best during these moments because these are the real tests of being a trader. I've recently gone from an incredible winning streak to what is currently my longest losing streak in possibly 5 years or more. Now, the key here is this is one of the longest losing streaks I've had, which is only around 2 weeks, but every single trade I've taken in the past 2 weeks has lost. But the key point before we even begin, which is going to become one of the fundamental factors of this video, is whilst this is the longest losing streak I've had in a very, very long time, it's not my largest. And only through experience have I been able to reach the current standpoint I'm in, where a losing streak does not ruin me, which is the key behind all losing streaks. Now, I'm going to be somewhat vulnerable here, because I'm 30 years old now. I've been doing this for a very, very long time. And the older me in my early teenage years, if not in my early 20s, would have, at this sort of moment in time after several losses, especially being somewhat public, I would have probably hidden away, not tweeted, not posted anything on Instagram, and probably been a bit scared to share any thoughts, share any ideas, and even especially do a video. You know, I probably would have tried to mask it, shown my McLaren or done something like that to deter people away, essentially. But I'm not going to do that because I've been doing this long enough to know that losing streaks are actually completely normal. We've done a lot of videos on this, psychology series, we've done individual videos on this, and it's something we talk about a lot. And it just so happens right now, I'm going through that myself. So I think it's the perfect time whilst it's fresh to be doing this from my current perspective, and also cater to anyone out there that may be going through the same thing right now. In my opinion, the markets have been fucking difficult recently. You know, from a higher time frame basis, I've been pretty spot on, specifically from the previous crypto outlooks. We've seen fantastic results in terms of projections, but on the shorter term, and I've taken an intraday focus / intraday focus over the past 2 weeks, it just hasn't worked out. So I'm going to break down what happened during the winning streak and what I did immediately afterwards to ensure that whilst this is the longest losing streak, it is no longer my largest losing streak. Now, before we even get into that, it's very important to remember that you shouldn't fear losing streaks. And whilst the old me may have hidden away and just gone quiet, I actually want to do a video because it's so important to do this because it's completely normal. And even the best of traders will have these moments where things just don't seem to work. And that's what is very important to understand. A losing streak will cause some drawdown. A losing streak will cause a little bit of a drop in your equity. But eventually these moments will come, and it's completely normal. And you should not let it affect you because these are the moments specifically going from a winning streak where you can go from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows. And psychologically, it can actually be a lot more damaging going from a winning streak into a losing streak. And there are certain things I've done and do now over the years that I've learned to do, which ensure there's as least psychological damage as possible and simultaneously as least financial damage as possible. Now, I've only recently started getting back into trading crypto with leverage again. And over the past 2 months, I've managed to make around 50K in dollars from leverage trading crypto. Just taking the analysis I give to the members and slowly testing platforms. I am a complete virgin to crypto leverage trading. And I may have said this in previous videos, but the last time I traded crypto was leverage was either occasionally on MT4 through Forex brokers, but predominantly through BitMEX in those Wild West days where a singular candle would just obliterate your account. And there was a lot of money made and a lot of money lost. But I've decided now that I'm in Dubai and it's a lot easier to access many of the facilities to delve into futures trading, especially, which is my preferred method versus margin, borrow, repay, etc. Now, throughout this period of the past 2 months, I've managed to make a fantastic profit and a fantastic growth on my account. But in the past 2 weeks, I've started losing every single trade I've taken. Now, from the winning streak and the very first loss I suffered, everything was going the same and I kept everything the same. And very important, during the winning streak, I didn't increase my risk. I kept it exactly the same because a winning streak is equally as damaging and is one of them areas and moments and phases we go through where our ego can consume us and make us go in heavier, go in harder, or just remove stop losses. Because once you reach that state flow, your confidence naturally grows, which is, of course, very, very important. You need confidence when trading the markets. But simultaneously, that confidence can become overbearing and overpowering and end up crippling you if you allow it to get to you and consume your ego to then consume you. So I kept everything exactly the same. And progressively, it was like everything I touched turned to fucking gold. Every trade, bang, 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 bang. And then I lost. Now, this is the most important part because the moment I lost my first trade after a winning streak, through experience, I know this can be one of the most damaging moments for a trader. Because first of all, your ego is shattered, but there is a small window where you've won so much you do not even comprehend in your head or preempt that more losses could follow from this. And when you're in that state flow and you're in a constant flow of wins, you have this mentality where you'll probably make it back in the next trade. But again, through many, many years of experience, I've realized this isn't always the case. And unfortunately, in this predicament, this wasn't the case. And that one loss became many, many losses over the course of 2 weeks. So the very first thing I did after taking my first loss was immediately diminish the position size to 25% of what I normally risk. And the reason I'd done this is for 2 reasons, mostly. Number one, if there was to be another loss, that would not only have the capability to affect me psychologically, but it could have worsened the damage. And even though I was in profit and I would be eaten into profits with any more losses, your goal going from a winning streak to a losing streak, or even just a losing streak in general after a couple of wins, is to protect yourself mentally and financially as much as possible. Unfortunately, in this circumstance, I preempted that there probably could have been a few more losses. And unfortunately, there were. So it was a double-edged sword, but a bittersweet symphony, so to speak, where I begin to protect myself for future losses. So the first thing to do when shifting from a winning streak to a losing streak is to reduce your position size. Now, I have not allowed this to affect me mentally because this is also the second most important point when going into a losing streak, whether from a winning streak or just a losing streak that started from a couple wins. You will start to doubt yourself. You will start to have negative thoughts. But most importantly, out of that second point, is you will be fixated on the money lost. And your mindset in that moment of either losing a singular trade or going into a losing streak is you are now fixated on the money lost and not the money made. And this is very, very dangerous because your immediate thought no longer focuses on price action. And instead, your main mentality and mindset is fixated more so on trying to recoup the money that's been lost. And it becomes the sole focus for you, which can actually be incredibly detrimental because next thing you know, you are taking trades for no reason. So what you need to understand in that moment is if you reduce your risk to 25% of what you normally risk on a singular trade, those losses immediately become less damaging. And it simultaneously allows you many more trades to take, which can potentially lose as well on top, without actually damaging yourself. And in this particular instance, I've basically lost now, I think 6 trades in a row maybe? I forgot how many trades in a row, but 6 trades in a row, which is trades that I'm taking with complete confidence. And this will lead to my next point in a moment. But in the space of those 6 trades being taken, I have barely lost the equivalent of 2 singular trades in that process. So because of that, it's allowed me to, number one, give myself a margin of error, but simultaneously not damage myself in the process. And after 6 losses in a row, which honestly has actually fascinated me because I have not really had losses like that in a while. But of course, it's nothing to shy away from because the overall goal here is profitability. Now, my third most important point is something I did immediately after I had my second loss. In fact, my third loss. Now, the immediate thing, and one of the most important things to do if you have had a winning streak and go into a losing streak, and those losses are amplified, specifically if you do not reduce your risk per trade, you have a higher probability of ruining all of the work and results you have done during those winning streaks. And of course, during a winning streak, that is the moment where you are going to make your most money as a trader. So, your priority as a trader and a profitable trader should be to maximize and ensure you have as much of those profits as possible. And I immediately, after that second or third trade, I'm sure it was the third, but it was either the second, who knows. Either way, once I started realizing there was a pattern emerging where several losses were coming in, I then become vulnerable to either going full blown tilt and doing something stupid, or just progressively eating into profits. Now, again, when you go through these phases or wins and losses, they are equally as psychologically damaging on either side, because too many wins can increase your confidence and too many losses can cause significant amounts of self-doubt. So what I immediately did was make a 20k withdrawal straight out of Binance into my bank account, which is now of course AED, not GBP. And the moment I done that, a sense of relief came over me, because number one, I had rewarded myself for the efforts of the winning streak and the successes and profits that came with that winning streak. But simultaneously, it allowed a fine balance where, because I have received a reward and efforts for my efforts in the market, I am now able to endure any additional losses in the market, knowing that unless I end up losing 20k in one singular trade, at least those profits are real in my bank account and in my possession and can be spent however I like. I think that is a very important element of shifting from either a couple wins or a winning streak into a losing streak. One of the most important things to do. Because the moment you do that, the sense of relief that comes over you allows you to still understand and also avoid self-doubt. Because after a couple of losses, it's very easy to start doing some very stupid shit. And by stupid shit, I mean doubting yourself, which is the most important, and doubting your strategy, which is the second most important factor. Because there will come a point where you've gone from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows, and self-doubt really creeps in those moments, and you start to have these really horrible thoughts, and you also then become naturally scared to take your next setups, because you're number one scared of more further losses. Simultaneously, you're doubting yourself and very scared of what you're capable of, but you're also doubting your strategy. And this is where a lot of traders start to try and find more indicators or more signals or switch strategy entirely. Now, in these circumstances, you must remember you don't want to make excuses. You can't blame manipulation. You can't blame the market. You must blame yourself, because it is solely your fault. And in this particular instance, I could make any excuse I want, but it was me that pulled the trigger and me that took those trades. But every single trade I took was within my usual strategy alignments and realistically exactly what I would normally look for on the winning trades. Therefore, I have to understand that whilst the market has definitely been tricky, and this is also why I'm doing this video, because I know over the past few weeks, a lot of traders have found the market incredibly more complex than usual. A lot of the markets, even crypto, Forex stocks, a lot of things have been relatively choppy, relatively wacky due to the fundamental data as well. And I've seen on social media, specifically X, that a lot of traders have been suffering losses predominantly over the past few weeks. So I have a feeling I'm not alone in this situation, and I want to be the one to stand up and immediately come out and say, hey, I'm on a losing streak right now, and I don't think there's anything wrong with doing so. Because if you're on a losing streak right now, you may be suffering from all of the things I'm talking about. You may be doubting yourself, you may be suffering some losses. But by simply coming forward and just being completely transparent and open, it allows others that may be feeling that bit of self-doubt to understand that you may not be alone, and if it doesn't happen now, it will probably happen in the future. We can never anticipate and never really want to consider that a losing streak will come. But unfortunately for me, that time is right now. So I have to endure that the best way possible. Now, it can also be quite weird for someone to come out and be like, hey, I'm on a losing streak, I don't care. But I don't care at all, because if I was an unsuccessful trader, I would care, because I would have caused significant losses and damages. But I've understood over the many years of trading now that these days will inevitably come. All we can do is endure them and ensure our survival. So I can proudly hold my head up high despite a series of losses because I've survived and I'm still a survivor. And as a matter of fact, I'm still profitable for doing so. And we should never shy away from that because whilst these periods will cause that drop in equity or significant periods of drawdown, your goal during these moments, and arguably one of your greatest tests as a trader, is to not allow the sabotage from the trades to sabotage you as a trader. And actually, it was earlier that Bernie put it absolutely perfectly, especially from a crypto basis, when we were talking about my recent losing streak. And if I think about what I've been trying to do, overall, my higher time frame projections have absolutely come through exactly how I wanted. And the trades I was trying to capture were little moves in between to capture the overall bigger movements, which unfortunately I have missed, of course, how the world works. Typical, it happens. But the point here is, I was basically looking for little small moves, and because I reduced that risk to 25% or so of my overall singular risk per trade, I've essentially just lost, in retrospect, pennies in pursuit of the pounds. But it doesn't actually change anything overall. So, continuing on that basis, the first thing I am doing here is sticking to exactly what I was doing before. Because what I was doing before during the winning streak is actually exactly what I was realistically doing during the current losing streak. Therefore, it's important not to try and look for more or deter my strategy and try and modify or add anything else to it. There will be periods where the market just simply doesn't correspond as well, no matter how many confluences and alignments and technicals and fundamentals you find. It's the reality of trading. No strategy is 100%. And there will be times, especially if you take more trades, which I've recently done. And upon reflection, I've actually taken a lot more trades over the course of the past 2 weeks than I normally would do so, which is very likely a contributing factor. And as always, being transparent and honest, looking back in retrospect, maybe I should have just taken a handful of less trades. But overall, the analysis was really what I expected. It just squeezed me out a bit more. And maybe my stop losses were too tight. But either way, during these moments, it's so important to reflect and look at yourself and what you did in that moment. And you will often find, whilst the market can in many ways be blamed, we cannot blame the market. And we must look at our own actions as a byproduct. Now, one of the other factors to continue with here is not going full tilt. It is very easy when you go into a losing streak to fixate on those losses too much. And this is why I recommend, when you're in these phases, the minute you go from a series of wins to a loss, make a withdrawal and reduce the risk immediately to protect yourself in the event it gets worse. Because if it does get worse, you'll barely be losing. But simultaneously, if you immediately go back into a series of wins, or at least one win, whilst you may not make as much money because you've risked slightly less, you will allow yourself the courage to build that flow back up without being scared to take trades. And it's very important, even during a losing streak, you do not get scared to take more trades because you cannot let it stop you from trading opportunities. And if there is an opportunity in the market that you identify in line with your strategy, keep going. Just make sure you reduce the risk until you build that momentum back up. Because the way this now works for me is I need to continuously just take a few smaller risks, because if they succeed, they will help recover 50% of the losses at least. And once the momentum builds back up and I can realign myself with those levels, I can increase the risk gradually. That's very important. Damage control is fucking crucial when it comes to these moments in the market. But what we often do is, again, just go full blown tilt and increase the risk instead. And this is something I used to do a lot in my younger years. And this is where I've learnt my lesson, because you often can't preempt the severity of how many losses can come. And there has been times previously for me, especially when I first started, I would lose like 20 trades in a row. And most of those were just reckless. The only difference this time is I'm really sticking to what I'm doing, and it's still just not working right now. But if you go full blown crazy and you start to try and recoup those losses quickly, you're more likely, as an example, if you take 2 or 3 losses with your regular risk, your mind is engrossed on those losses. So you're more likely going to try and recoup those losses as quickly as possible. You must remember that losing streaks or singular losses in the market are simply setbacks and hurdles which cannot be avoided. So you do not want them to cause more damage than possible. And furthermore, you should not try to recoup those losses as quickly as possible, because that's where the most damage is caused. And if you're like most people, something I've done again myself from experience, I would then try and double the risk or double the position size and try to recoup it in a little scalp or a singular trade, blah, blah, blah. Next thing you know, you're in a 50% hole and there's no room for recovery. It's very important to remember that these days will come. But if you're still profitable and you follow these specific measures, you will remain profitable. A lot of social media, of course, is constant wins, constant glamour, constant everything. And for me, it has actually been that throughout most of my content over the past few weeks and months, because it has been mostly wins, correct analysis, and fantastic trades. And even from a spot trade basis, over the past 2, 3 months, I made almost $250,000 from spot buys alone on certain altcoins. Then you factor in 50K from leverage trading. I've made remarkable profits. And of course, what I've actually lost today, I lost 8K. Overall, from my other trades and my other account where I'm risking very small, I've lost around 2K. So I'm down around 10K from theoretically a collective profit over the past few months of 300K. But that can get significantly worse if I allow it to get to me. Now, the next thing to also really mention is something I've been doing a lot recently and every single day religiously now, is meditation. Now, this may seem hocus pocus to many people, and this will be something that me and Bernie likely cover in future psychology series as well. But meditation has been something I was doing not only through the winning streak, but also through the losing streak. And this has allowed me to really maintain clarity and calmness throughout these moments, because psychologically we can really get damaged when we start to suffer several losses. And there will be those demons in your head that make you think it's worse than it is. And you may even feel humiliated, especially if you're publicly posting your trades. And that's a big factor in this day and age because so many people are on social media. It can be very easy to, post a chart and it doesn't work out and you've lost money from it. And people will, delete the tweet or pretend they didn't lose or then take an opposing trade and show the win instead. A lot of people do that, but you shouldn't have anything to be ashamed about. And I'm doing this more so as well, not just for you guys who may have been through this, may go through this, or potentially will go through this whenever. Realistically, you have nothing to fear because if you remain profitable, you have nothing to hide and you have nothing to fear whatsoever. It's really important you remember this. And I thought right now in this moment, I'm suffering from this right now. And I say suffering, but I'm not suffering. But the truth is, I'm currently going through a losing streak. So I think this is the best time to do this video. Instead of hiding away and going in and recalibrating and, being all mysterious and then coming back. No, it's actually better to come forward. And in this moment, as I'm dealing with it, it's more likely to be more effective sharing my current thoughts, my current mindset, my current sentiment, because it's also not going to last forever. Really important to remember that. It's the same as many things. If you go through depression or a hard time in your life, you will currently focus on the present and get so consumed in the present, you will end up believing that this will be your life forever. No, mentally, I already know that the losses will eventually stop and the winning streaks will return and everything goes back to sunshine and rainbows. But if you do not have that understanding in the back of your mind and you go through a losing streak and you believe that this is the end all and be all and it's over for you, well, if that's the case, you've likely over-risked and over-leveraged. But by taking on board what I've said in this video and being very honest and coming forward and doing so, alongside the pointers and tips I've provided, you will 100% be able to endure these losing streaks and periods in the market where you lose with a significant improvement. You will see less damages, you will feel mentally better, and you will be able to pursue the market and continue. Remember, this is a game of survival. And in this game of survival, many hurdles will come. There will be many attempts to bring you down. But what ensures your survival is your capability to survive. I know that sounds cliche, but it's down to us to stay afloat. And during these moments where we are more emotionally prone to doing very, very stupid things, which we as human beings do, we have to ensure we are our best during these moments because these are the real tests of being a trader. A winning streak is easy. It's no different to buying crypto in the bull run when it's green and up only and all those God candles are coming through. Everyone is a genius in a rising market, but when the bear markets come, there's not many people left surviving. The same applies when it comes to leverage trading. Because this is the first for me in a very long time, it had the capability to absolutely ruin me if I broke my rules and my formula and didn't learn from my previous experiences when I was younger. Fortunately, I have, and I want to share that with you guys in this video. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this, and hopefully, it's been very helpful and beneficial for anyone that has been through it before, maybe going through it now, and if not, going through it in the future. And if you do end up experiencing this after this video, please make sure you come back and watch this, and I have no doubt it will be significantly easier to endure.